Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Endeavour, watching the strange lights dance across the view screen. After 3 months of deep space exploration, his crew had discovered something that would change everything for humanity. The sensor readings were unlike anything they had ever seen before. "Captain, we're detecting massive energy signatures," reported Lieutenant Danny Brooks from his station. "These readings are off the charts. Whatever is out there, it's big and it's powerful." Dr. Lisa Barnes moved closer to the captain, her scientific instruments beeping constantly. She had been studying space phenomena for 15 years, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. "The energy patterns suggest advanced technology, Captain. This isn't natural. Someone built whatever is creating these signals." Chief Engineer Ryan Torres checked his console with growing concern. The ship's systems were running perfectly, but he could feel something was different. The usual hum of the engine seemed quieter somehow. "Captain, I'm detecting some kind of interference with our systems. It's subtle, but it's there." Jake nodded and walked to the center of the bridge. He had commanded the Endeavour for 5 years, exploring the outer reaches of human space. His crew trusted him, and he trusted them. But this situation felt different from anything they had encountered before. "Open a channel on all frequencies. Let's see if anyone wants to talk." The response came immediately. The view screen filled with an image that made everyone on the bridge take a step back. 4 different types of alien beings stood before them, each more intimidating than the last. Their leader, a tall creature with silver skin and glowing eyes, stepped forward. "Primitive mammals," the alien spoke in perfect English, though its voice carried a cold, mechanical tone. "You dare to enter Zephyrian space without permission. I am Supreme Commander Vexthara of the Zephyrian Empire. You will identify yourselves immediately." Jake straightened his uniform and stepped forward. First contact protocols had been drilled into every deep space captain, but facing actual aliens was completely different from training simulations. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth vessel USS Endeavour. We come in peace, seeking to establish friendly relations with other intelligent species." The alien leader made a sound that might have been laughter, but it held no warmth. "Friendly relations? You misunderstand your position, primitive one. Your species has been observed and evaluated. You are weak, emotional, and technologically inferior. Your military capabilities are laughable at best." Dr. Barnes stepped beside the captain, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. "We would be honored to learn from your advanced civilization. Perhaps we could share knowledge and benefit both our species." "Share knowledge?" Vexthara's glowing eyes seemed to brighten with amusement. "You have nothing we could possibly want. Your crude technology is centuries behind our most basic systems. Your emotional nature makes you unstable and unpredictable. Your species lacks the discipline necessary for true civilization." Ryan watched his engineering displays with growing alarm. The alien ship was doing something to the Endeavour systems. "Captain, they're scanning our entire ship. Every system, every component. It's like they're reading our technical specifications." "Your primitive vessel confirms our assessment," Vexthara continued. Chemical rockets, basic fusion reactors, simple projectile weapons. Your species has barely mastered interplanetary travel, yet you venture into deep space. Such reckless behavior proves your inferiority." Jake felt his anger rising, but kept his voice steady. "We may be younger than your civilization, but we've achieved much in a short time. Our species has overcome countless challenges through cooperation and determination." "Cooperation?" The alien's voice dripped with disdain. "You mean the emotional weakness that prevents you from achieving true unity? Your planet is divided into hundreds of separate nations, each fighting the others for resources and territory. You cannot even govern yourselves properly." The other aliens behind Vexthara remained silent, but their presence was intimidating. Each species looked completely different, yet they stood together as one unified force. Their technology was clearly far beyond anything humanity had developed. "Nevertheless," Jake replied, "we've come here in peace. We're willing to learn and grow, perhaps our different perspectives could benefit both our civilizations. Vexthar raised one elongated hand, and suddenly every system on the Endeavor went dark. Emergency lighting flickered on as the crew scrambled to understand what had happened. Ryan's fingers flew over his console, trying to restore power, but nothing responded. "This is our response to your peaceful intentions," the alien commander said. "We have disabled your weapons, your shields, and your communication systems. Your primitive technology is helpless against our capabilities. Consider this a demonstration of the difference between our species." The ship's systems came back online just as suddenly as they had failed. Ryan stared at his displays in amazement. "Captain, they shut down everything and brought it back online without touching a single component. I don't understand how they did it." Vexthara's image dominated the viewscreen once more. "Your species will submit to Zephyrian authority. We offer you protection and guidance under our empire. You will abandon your primitive ways and accept our superior civilization. This is not a negotiation. This is an ultimatum." Jake felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. Whatever he said next would determine humanity's future, and if we refuse, then you will face corrective measures, Vexthara replied without emotion. "Your species has one of your Earth years to make this decision. Submit willingly, or we will demonstrate why resistance is futile. Choose wisely, primitive mammals." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Jake looked at his crew. Seeing his own concerns reflected in their faces, Dr. Barnes was already analyzing the recorded data, while Ryan was running diagnostics on every system the aliens had affected. "Danny, set course for Earth," Jake ordered. "Maximum speed. We need to warn them what's coming." As the Endeavor turned toward home, Jake realized that humanity's peaceful exploration of space had just ended. The universe was not the empty frontier they had imagined. It was controlled by beings who saw humans as nothing more than primitive animals to be tamed or destroyed. The countdown to humanity's ultimate test had begun. The emergency session in the White House Situation Room had been going on for 6 hours. President Maria Santos sat at the head of the table, her face showing the strain of the impossible decision before her. The holographic display showed Captain Jake Morrison's recorded encounter with the Zephyrian Empire, playing for the 20th time as military and civilian leaders, tried to understand what humanity was facing. Admiral Kevin Hughes leaned forward in his chair, his weathered hands clasped tightly together. He had served in the Space Navy for 30 years, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. "The technological gap is massive, Madam President. They disabled the Endeavor's entire system with what appeared to be a simple gesture. Our most advanced warships would be helpless against that kind of power." General Patricia Cole nodded grimly from across the table. Her ground forces had never faced an enemy like this before. "Our intelligence suggests they've conquered 17 different species using the same pattern. They demonstrate overwhelming power, demand surrender, and crush any resistance with minimal effort. It's a proven strategy." Dr. Samuel Cross, the head of the Terran Research Division, was studying the alien technology readings on his tablet. His team had been working around the clock since the Endeavor's return 3 days ago. "The energy signatures are unlike anything we've seen. They're manipulating quantum fields in ways we're only beginning to understand. Our current technology is like comparing a stone axe to a nuclear reactor." Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner stood near the display, his intelligence report in hand. He had spent his career analyzing alien threats that turned out to be false alarms. Now he faced the real thing. Their psychological warfare is just as dangerous as their technology. They're spreading the message across all human colonies that resistance is futile. Panic is starting to set in on the outer worlds. President Santos rubbed her temples, feeling the weight of 8 billion lives on her shoulders. "What about evacuation? Can we move our people to safety?" "Where would they go?" Admiral Hughes asked quietly. "These aliens control vast regions of space. According to their own statements, they've been watching us for years. They know the location of every human colony, every space station, every ship. The door to the Situation Room opened, and Commander Rachel Stone entered with her latest report. She had been coordinating with colonial defense forces across human space, and the news was not encouraging. The outer colonies are in chaos. 3 systems have already voted to surrender without a fight. The colonial governors are demanding immediate protection that we simply cannot provide. Dr. Cross looked up from his tablet with a thoughtful expression. There might be something we're missing. The aliens seem very confident in their assessment of our capabilities. Perhaps too confident. What do you mean? President Santos asked, hoping for any piece of good news. They called us primitive mammals, Dr. Cross explained. They dismissed our emotional nature as weakness. But they also seemed surprised by our diversity. Most species they've conquered appear to have been unified under single governments. They may not understand how human independence and creativity actually work. General Cole leaned back in her chair, considering the implications. You think they've underestimated us? I think they've categorized us based on their experience with other species, Dr. Cross replied. But humans don't fit the same patterns. We're chaotic, unpredictable, and we adapt quickly to new situations. Those traits might be advantages rather than weaknesses. Lieutenant Commander Turner pulled up a new display showing Zephyrian conquest patterns. Every species they've defeated followed the same response pattern. They either surrendered immediately or tried to fight using conventional military tactics. None of them attempted anything unexpected. Admiral Hughes studied the data with growing interest. Our military doctrine has always emphasized flexibility and innovation. We train our officers to think outside the box, to find solutions that others might not consider. Commander Stone stepped forward, her voice carrying a note of determination. My colonial forces are used to operating independently with limited resources. They've learned to be creative, to make do with whatever they have available. That's not something the aliens would expect from a conquered species. President Santos felt a spark of hope for the first time since the crisis began. Are you suggesting we might actually have a chance? I'm suggesting we have advantages the aliens don't recognize, Dr. Cross said carefully. They see our emotional responses as instability, but emotions can drive incredible determination. They see our diversity as chaos, but diversity means multiple approaches to every problem. They see our youth as a species as inexperience, but youth also means adaptability. The room fell silent as everyone considered the implications. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered 17 species by following the same pattern every time. They had studied humanity and reached the same conclusions they had reached about every other species. But what if humanity was different? Admiral Hughes stood up slowly, his expression changing from despair to something approaching confidence. We need to start thinking like humans instead of like every other species they've conquered. We need to do things they wouldn't expect. The colonies that are panicking might actually be our first line of defense, Commander Stone added. If we can coordinate their efforts, their local knowledge and desperate creativity might surprise the aliens. General Cole nodded thoughtfully. We've always been at our best when our backs are against the wall. Every major human advance has come from facing impossible odds and finding a way through. President Santos looked around the table at her advisors. The hopelessness that had filled the room was gradually being replaced by something else. Not optimism exactly, but determination. What do you need? Dr. Cross was already making notes on his tablet. Time to study their technology. Resources to develop countermeasures. And most importantly, we need to stop thinking like victims and start thinking like survivors. You have whatever you need, the president said firmly. But we need to be realistic about our chances. Even if we can surprise them, we're still facing a technologically superior enemy with thousands of years of experience. That's true, Admiral Hughes replied. But they're also facing something they've never encountered before. They're facing humanity. The meeting continued long into the night, but the tone had changed completely. Instead of discussing surrender terms, they were planning the impossible. They were planning to prove that the aliens had made a fatal mistake in underestimating the Human spirit. Outside the White House, the city continued its normal routine, unaware that in a small room, a handful of people were deciding whether humanity would bow down to alien masters or stand up and fight for their freedom. The countdown to the alien ultimatum continued. But now humanity was no longer counting down to surrender. They were counting down to war. Dr. Samuel Cross stood in his laboratory at 3 a.m, staring at the quantum field readings from the alien encounter. His team had been working non-stop for 2 weeks, trying to understand technology that seemed impossible by human standards. Coffee cups and food containers littered the workspace, evidence of their desperate race against time. "Samuel, look at this," called Dr. Carlos Rivera from across the room. He was hunched over a computer terminal, his eyes red from exhaustion but bright with excitement. "I've been analyzing the energy patterns they used to disable the Endeavor. It's not magic. It's just very advanced quantum field manipulation." Maya Chun, the team's lead engineer, rolled her chair over to examine Carlos's findings. She had been reverse engineering alien technology for the past decade, but this was her biggest challenge yet. The readings show they're using quantum entanglement on a massive scale. They can affect our electronics by manipulating the quantum state of particles inside our systems. Samuel felt his heart racing as he understood the implications. If they're using quantum fields, then our quantum research might actually be relevant. We've been experimenting with quantum manipulation for military applications for years. Exactly, Carlos said, pulling up another screen. The difference is that they've perfected it while we're still learning. But the basic principles are the same. We understand the science, even if we can't match their implementation. Maya stood up and walked to the whiteboard, grabbing a marker. Here's what I think is happening. They send out a quantum field pulse that entangles with particles in our electronics. Then they manipulate those particles to disrupt our systems. It's elegant, but it has weaknesses. What kind of weaknesses? Samuel asked, moving closer to the board. Quantum entanglement is fragile, Maya explained, drawing diagrams as she spoke. It can be disrupted by electromagnetic interference, temperature changes, or even random quantum fluctuations. If we can create enough quantum noise, we might be able to block their control. Meanwhile, across the city, Captain Jake Morrison was meeting with Admiral Kevin Hughes in a secure conference room. Jake had been promoted to admiral after his encounter with the aliens, and now he was leading the military response to the crisis. Admiral, we need to completely rethink our approach to space combat, Jake said, studying tactical displays on the table. Everything we know about warfare assumes that both sides have similar capabilities. Against the Zephyrians, conventional tactics will get us killed. Admiral Hughes nodded grimly. What do you suggest? We need to think like guerrilla fighters, Jake replied. Hit and run tactics, unpredictable movements, using their expectations against them. The aliens think they know how space combat works because they've conquered 17 other species. We need to show them something completely different. Lieutenant Colonel Nathan Wright entered the room carrying a thick folder of tactical plans. He had been working with colonial defense forces to develop new combat strategies, and his ideas were radical by military standards. I've been studying historical guerrilla warfare campaigns. The principles work even in space combat. We use speed, surprise, and unpredictable tactics to offset their technological advantage. Give me specifics, Admiral Hughes said. Leaning forward with interest, Nathan opened his folder and spread out star charts and ship schematics. Traditional space combat involves large fleets meeting in open space and fighting until one side wins. The aliens expect that because that's how every other species has fought them. Instead, we use small, fast ships that attack from unexpected angles and disappear before they can respond. Jake studied the plans with growing excitement. This could work. Our ships are smaller and more maneuverable than theirs. We can't match their firepower, but we can avoid getting hit. Meanwhile, Commander Rachel Stone was addressing a meeting of colonial defense commanders via hologram. Representatives from dozens of human colonies appeared around the conference table, their faces showing a mixture of fear and determination. The outer colonies are our greatest advantage, Rachel explained to the assembled commanders. You know, your local space better than any alien invader. You have resources and hiding places they don't know about. Most importantly, you have the desperation that comes from defending your homes. Commander Tony Blake from the Centauri system raised his hand. What about weapons? Our colonial defense forces have mining equipment and civilian ships. How do we fight advanced alien warships? We don't fight them the way they expect, Rachel replied. We use asteroid fields for cover. We hide weapons in cargo containers. We make every piece of space infrastructure a potential weapon. The aliens conquered other species by defeating their military. We need to make sure there's no clear target for them to defeat. Back in the laboratory, Maya had made a breakthrough. I've got it, she announced, causing Samuel and Carlos to rush over to her workstation. We can build quantum scramblers, devices that generate random quantum fluctuations to disrupt their control systems. How long to build them? Samuel asked, already thinking about implementation. With the resources we have, maybe 6 months. For a prototype, Maya replied, but we need to think bigger. We need to build thousands of these devices and hide them throughout human space. Carlos was already working on the technical specifications. We can disguise them as normal equipment. Hide them in space stations, asteroid mining operations, even inside our own ships. When the aliens attack, we activate them all at once. Samuel felt hope growing in his chest for the first time since the crisis began. It's not enough to just disrupt their systems. We need to coordinate this with military action. Give our forces the chance to strike while their technology is compromised. The 3 scientists worked through the night, developing plans that would have seemed impossible weeks earlier. They were creating weapons that didn't exist, using principles they barely understood to fight enemies they had never seen before. But they were doing it with the creativity and determination that had always defined humanity across human space. Similar scenes were playing out. Engineers were designing new weapons, tacticians were developing impossible strategies, and ordinary people were preparing to defend their homes against beings from the stars. The aliens had given humanity 1 year to surrender, but humanity was using that time to prepare for war. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered 17 species by following the same pattern. They had studied humanity and reached the same conclusions about human weakness and inferiority. But they had never faced a species that refused to accept defeat, that turned every disadvantage into an opportunity, that fought with the desperate creativity of beings who had nothing left to lose. The countdown to the alien ultimatum continued, but humanity was no longer counting down to surrender. They were counting down to the moment when they would prove that the aliens had made the biggest mistake in their long history of conquest. The year was almost over, and the massive Zephyrian fleet appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system like a dark cloud blocking out the stars. Supreme Commander Vextara stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the primitive human homeworld through the viewscreen. His 4-species alliance had brought only a standard subjugation force, confident that the weak mammals would surrender without meaningful resistance. Intelligence confirms the humans have made no significant military preparations, reported Subcommander Krelter, a member of the insectoid Nexari species. Their fleet positions are exactly where we expected them to be. Our projections show complete conquest within 72 hours. Vextara nodded with satisfaction. The pattern was always the same. Species either surrendered immediately or put up token resistance before inevitable defeat. The humans had chosen the latter option, which would provide useful entertainment. For his forces, begin the standard intimidation sequence. Show them the futility of resistance. Admiral Jake Morrison watched the alien fleet from the command center of the space station orbiting Mars. The enemy ships were massive, their technology clearly superior to anything humanity possessed. But Jake had spent the past year preparing for this moment, and he was ready to spring the trap that would change everything. All stations report ready, announced Captain Emma Foster from the USS Intrepid. Her ship was positioned near Jupiter, seemingly preparing for a desperate last stand. The enemy is taking the bait perfectly. They're advancing exactly as we predicted. Lieutenant Colonel Nathan Wright coordinated the operation from a hidden command post in the asteroid belt. His unconventional tactics had been refined over months of planning, and every detail had been carefully calculated. Phase 1 is complete. The aliens are moving into position. They believe they're seeing our entire defensive capability. The Zephyrian fleet advanced through the solar system easily, destroying the outer defensive perimeter. Human ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light, their crews apparently dying in hopeless battles against superior technology. The alien commanders watched with cold satisfaction as their expectations were confirmed once again. The mammals are even weaker than our projections suggested, observed War Master Thizes of the reptilian Corvan species. Their ships are poorly constructed and their tactics are primitive. This conquest will be recorded as one of our easiest victories. But hidden throughout the solar system, humanity's real preparations were waiting. Dr. Samuel Cross's quantum scramblers had been installed in thousands of locations, disguised as normal equipment and debris. Maya Shun's engineering teams had worked around the clock to hide the devices in destroyed ships, asteroid mining stations, and even inside the hulls of apparently functioning vessels. Commander Rachel Stone watched from her concealed position near Saturn's rings as the alien fleet moved deeper into the trap. Her colonial forces had perfected the art of appearing defeated while maintaining their actual fighting capability. All units maintain the deception. Let them think they're winning until we spring the trap. The aliens continued their advance, destroying human defenses with contemptuous ease. Their quantum field manipulators disabled ship after ship, proving once again that primitive technology was no match for Zephyrian superiority. The human fleet appeared to be in complete disarray, retreating in panic toward Earth. The humans are running, reported Navigation Officer Zefak with obvious amusement. Their emotional nature has overcome any pretense of military discipline. They flee like frightened animals. Supreme Commander Vexthara allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Increase speed. We will end this pathetic display quickly and move on to more important matters. The humans have proven themselves unworthy of extended attention. Admiral Morrison received the signal he had been waiting for. The alien fleet was now deep within the solar system, surrounded by thousands of hidden quantum scramblers. The enemy had positioned themselves exactly where humanity needed them to be. All units, prepare for Operation Underdog. Maya, are your scramblers ready? From her engineering station, Maya Chun confirmed that every hidden device was operational. Quantum scramblers are charged and ready. We have complete coverage of the enemy fleet's position. When we activate them, their quantum field manipulation will be completely disrupted. The trap was perfect. The aliens had advanced into the solar system, believing they were chasing a broken and demoralized enemy. Instead, they had walked into the most sophisticated ambush in human history. Every retreating human ship had been placing quantum scramblers in carefully calculated positions, creating an invisible net around the advancing alien fleet. The humans have stopped running, observed Sub-Commander Krauter with surprise. They appear to be regrouping near Earth. Perhaps they intend to make a final stand. Vexthara studied the tactical display with mild interest. Let them gather their forces. It will make the final destruction more efficient. We will demonstrate why resistance is futile, then begin the subjugation process. But something was wrong. The human fleet that had been running in panic was now moving with precision and coordination. Ships that had appeared damaged were revealing hidden weapons. The chaotic retreat was transforming into an organized battle formation. Commander, the human fleet is larger than our intelligence suggested, reported War Master Thizes with growing concern. They appear to have additional ships emerging from concealment throughout the asteroid belt. Admiral Morrison smiled grimly as he watched the confusion spreading through the alien fleet. The enemy had expected to face a broken and scattered human military. Instead, they were about to discover that everything they thought they knew about humanity was wrong. Nathan, begin Phase 2. Show them what human tactics really look like. Lieutenant Colonel Wright's hidden forces emerged from the asteroid belt like hunting wolves. Ships that had been disguised as debris suddenly came to life, their weapons targeting the alien fleet from unexpected angles. The careful choreography of defeat was about to become a symphony of surprise. "All units execute Operation Underdog," Admiral Morrison commanded. "Maya, activate the quantum scramblers. Emma, begin your attack run. Rachel, release the colonial forces. It's time to show these aliens what happens when they underestimate humanity." The trap was about to be sprung. The Zephyrian Empire, confident in their superiority and certain of easy victory, was about to learn that they had made the greatest mistake in their long history of conquest. They had assumed that humanity would react like every other species they had defeated. They were about to discover that humans were something entirely different. The battle for humanity's survival was about to begin, and the aliens were about to learn why it had been a mistake to give humanity a full year to prepare for war. The moment Maya-chan activated the quantum scramblers, everything changed across the solar system. Thousands of hidden devices came to life simultaneously, creating a massive web of quantum interference that surrounded the Zephyrian fleet. The aliens had been using quantum field manipulation for centuries, but they had never encountered anything like this coordinated disruption. "What is happening to our systems?" demanded Supreme Commander Vex Thara as his flagship's controls began. Flickering and failing, the quantum field manipulators that had effortlessly disabled human ships were now producing random, chaotic effects instead of precise control. Sub-Commander Krelter stared at his instruments in disbelief. "Commander, our quantum systems are experiencing massive interference. The field manipulators are not responding to commands. Some are operating in reverse, others are producing random outputs." The alien fleet, which had been advancing with perfect coordination just moments before, was suddenly struggling with basic navigation and weapons control. Their technological advantage was evaporating as their most sophisticated systems became unreliable and unpredictable. Admiral Jake Morrison watched the alien confusion with grim satisfaction from his command center. The quantum scramblers were working even better than Dr. Cross had predicted. "All units, the enemy is blind and confused. Execute attack pattern Alpha. Hit them hard while they can't fight back." Captain Emma Foster led the charge from the USS Intrepid, her ship emerging from behind Jupiter's largest moon with weapons blazing. The human fleet, which had appeared scattered and defeated just minutes earlier, was now moving with deadly precision. Target their command ships first. Take out their ability to coordinate a response. Zephyrian ships tried to return fire, but their weapon systems were as confused as everything else. Energy beams that should have vaporized human vessels instead fired in random directions or failed to activate at all. The aliens' perfect technology had become a liability in the face of quantum chaos. Lieutenant Colonel Nathan Wright's forces struck from the asteroid belt like a pack of wolves attacking a wounded giant. His small, fast ships darted between the massive alien vessels, targeting weak points in critical systems. Remember, speed and unpredictability. Don't give them time to adapt to our tactics. War Master Thizes of the Corvan species tried desperately to regain control of his squadron. "This is impossible. Our technology is superior? How are these primitive mammals causing such disruption?" But the humans were far from primitive. They had spent a full year preparing for this moment, developing tactics and technology specifically designed to exploit Zephyrian weaknesses. Every aspect of the battle had been planned and rehearsed, turning the aliens' overconfidence against them. Commander Rachel Stone's colonial forces joined the battle from hidden positions throughout the solar system. Mining ships converted into warships, cargo vessels packed with explosives, even civilian transports carrying improvised weapons. The aliens had expected to face a military fleet, but instead they were fighting an entire civilization. "This is not how space combat works," protested Navigation Officer Zefok as human ships attacked from every conceivable angle. "They should be forming battle lines and engaging us directly. This chaotic fighting has no structure or honor." Supreme Commander Vexthara was beginning to understand that everything his species knew about warfare was being challenged. They are not fighting like any species we have conquered before. Their tactics make no sense according to established military doctrine. Dr. Lisa Barnes, now serving as a tactical advisor, coordinated the psychological aspect of the battle from Earth's command center. Keep hitting them with unpredictable attacks. Their entire strategy depends on understanding their enemy's behavior. Make sure they can't predict what we'll do next. The human tactics were working perfectly. Where the aliens expected large fleet formations, they found small groups of ships attacking from unexpected directions. Where they expected conventional weapons, they found improvised devices that shouldn't have been effective but somehow were. Where they expected surrender after initial defeats, they found endless waves of determined defenders. Mayashan monitored the quantum scramblers from her engineering station, making constant adjustments to maintain maximum disruption. The alien systems are trying to adapt to our interference. I'm rotating frequencies and patterns to keep them confused. The battle raged across the solar system as human forces pressed their advantage. Alien ships that had seemed invincible were now struggling to perform basic functions. Their crews, accustomed to easy victories, were facing an enemy that refused to follow any known pattern of behavior. Our shields are failing, reported Sub-Commander Krauter as human weapons found their targets. The quantum interference is preventing proper energy distribution. We cannot maintain defensive systems. Captain Foster's ship scored a direct hit on an alien cruiser, causing massive explosions across its hull. Their armor is strong, but it's not invincible. Concentrate fire on damaged sections. Bring them down one ship at a time. The aliens were experiencing something they had never encountered in their long history of conquest. They were losing. Their technological superiority was meaningless when their technology didn't work properly. Their combat experience was useless when facing tactics they had never seen before. "Commander, we must withdraw," urged War Master Thyses as another alien ship exploded under human fire. "Our forces are taking heavy casualties. This is not a battle we can win under these conditions." Supreme Commander Vexthara stared at the tactical display in disbelief. His mighty fleet, which had conquered 17 civilizations, was being defeated by the species he had dismissed as primitive mammals. "This is impossible. Our intelligence was perfect. These humans were supposed to be weak and emotional. But the humans were proving that their emotions made them stronger, not weaker. Their determination to defend their homes, their refusal to accept defeat, their willingness to sacrifice everything for freedom. These were sources of strength that the cold, calculating aliens could not understand or counter. Admiral Morrison watched as more alien ships fell to human weapons. The tide of battle had turned completely in humanity's favor. All units, maintain pressure. Don't give them time to regroup or adapt. This is our moment. The Zephyrian Empire, masters of the galaxy for thousands of years, was learning that they had finally met their match. They had encountered a species that could not be conquered by superior technology alone, a species that turned every disadvantage into an opportunity, a species that grew stronger when facing impossible odds. The battle was far from over, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. Humanity had proven that the aliens had made a fatal error in judgment, and now the entire galaxy would learn that humans were not the weak, primitive species the Zephyrians had believed them to be. The Zephyrian fleet retreated in complete disarray. Their once mighty formations scattered across the outer solar system like leaves in a storm. Supreme Commander Vexthara found himself aboard a damaged flagship, surrounded by the wreckage of ships that had been considered invincible just hours before. His quantum field manipulators were still malfunctioning, leaving him vulnerable to human pursuit. Admiral Jake Morson's forces had achieved the impossible. The alien fleet that had conquered 17 civilizations was running from a species they had dismissed as primitive mammals. Human ships pursued the retreating aliens, not for revenge, but to ensure they understood the lesson they had just learned. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the alien flagship," reported Captain Emma Foster from the USS Intrepid. Her ship had taken damage during the battle, but she and her crew were alive and victorious. They're requesting negotiations. Jake considered the request carefully. Humanity had proven their point in the most dramatic way possible, but what happened next would determine the future of both species. Accept the transmission. Let's see what the mighty Zephyrian Empire has to say now. The viewscreen filled with the image of Supreme Commander Vexthara, but the arrogant alien leader who had threatened humanity a year ago was gone. In his place was a defeated commander who had just experienced the shock of his lifetime. His glowing eyes were dimmed, and his silver skin seemed to have lost its metallic sheen. "Admiral Morrison," Vexthara began, his voice lacking the cold confidence it had carried before. "I request immediate cessation of hostilities. The Zephyrian Empire wishes to discuss terms." "Terms?" Jake replied, keeping his voice steady and professional. "A year ago you gave us terms. Submit or face destruction? Now you want to negotiate?" Vexthara was silent for a long moment, clearly struggling with concepts that were foreign to his experience. "We have made an error in judgment. Our assessment of your species was incomplete. We did not understand the true nature of human capability." "Doctor." Lisa Barnes joined the conversation from Earth's command center, her scientific curiosity overcoming the satisfaction of victory. "What did you think you understood about us?" "We believed your emotional responses indicated weakness," Vexthara admitted, his words coming slowly as if each one was difficult to speak. "We interpreted your diversity as chaos, your independence as inability to organize effectively. We have conquered 17 species using the same analysis, and it has never failed before." Commander Rachel Stone, coordinating from her position near Saturn, added her perspective to the discussion. "You made the mistake of thinking we were like every other species you'd conquered. You tried to fit us into patterns we don't follow." The alien commander nodded reluctantly. "Your species does not conform to established behavioral models. You turned perceived weaknesses into tactical advantages. You used our expectations against us. This is not how warfare is supposed to function." Lieutenant Colonel Nathan Wright, whose unconventional tactics had been crucial to the victory, couldn't help but respond. "That's exactly the problem. You think there's only one way to fight, one way to respond to threats. Humans don't accept limitations like that." Dr. Samuel Cross, monitoring the conversation from his laboratory, added his scientific analysis. "Your technology is impressive, but you've become dependent on it. When we disrupted your quantum systems, your entire military doctrine collapsed. We learned to fight without depending on any single advantage." Mayo Chun, who had designed the quantum scramblers that made victory possible, felt a mixture of pride and relief. "We spent a year studying your technology and finding ways to counter it. You gave us time to prepare, and we used every moment of it." Supreme Commander Vexthara was beginning to understand the magnitude of his miscalculation. "You used our confidence against us. We believed our superiority was absolute, so we did not prepare for serious resistance. This error has cost us greatly." President Maria Santos joined the communication from the White House, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had just led her species through its greatest trial. "The question now is what happens next. You came here to conquer us. We've proven that's not going to happen. Where do we go from here?" The alien commander was quiet for several minutes, consulting with advisors who were no longer visible on the screen. When he returned, his expression had changed again. "The Zephyrian Empire has ruled this region of space for thousands of years. We have never encountered a species capable of defeating us in direct conflict. We must reconsider our approach to galactic governance." Admiral Morrison sensed an opportunity that could benefit both species. "We're not interested in becoming conquerors ourselves. We never wanted this fight in the first place, but we won't accept subjugation either." "What do you propose?" Vexthara asked, his tone suggesting genuine interest rather than diplomatic maneuvering. Dr. Cross had been thinking about this possibility throughout the conflict. "Partnership instead of domination. Your technology combined with our adaptability could benefit both our civilizations. We could learn from each other instead of fighting. The conversation continued for hours as both sides explored possibilities that neither had considered before the battle. The Zephyrian Empire had always operated on the principle that superior civilizations should rule inferior ones. Humanity was forcing them to consider a completely different approach to interstellar relations. Eventually, the framework for what would become known as the Terran-Zephyrian Accord began to take shape. It was built on mutual respect rather than domination, on shared knowledge rather than subjugation, on the recognition that different approaches to civilization could be equally valid, Commander Stone summarized the lesson in her final report months later. They thought our emotions made us weak, but our emotions gave us the determination to never surrender. They thought our diversity made us chaotic, but our diversity gave us multiple solutions to every problem. They thought our youth as a species made us inexperienced, but our youth made us adaptable enough to learn and grow quickly. They thought humanity was weak, and we proved them wrong. The galaxy would never be the same. For the first time in millennia, the Zephyrian Empire had learned that there was more than one way to build a civilization, more than one path to strength, and more than one definition of superiority. Humanity had taken its place among the stars not as conquerors or subjects, but as equals who had earned respect through courage, creativity, and the refusal to accept defeat. The species that had been dismissed as primitive mammals had taught the galaxy's greatest empire that true strength came not from technology or military might, but from the unbreakable spirit of beings who would never stop fighting for their freedom and never stop believing that tomorrow could be better than today.